I wanted to take on the role as commissioner because when I got here 2 years ago, I saw that there was a lot of good work going on in the agency. And sometimes when there's a change of administration, things take a step backwards and fall apart. And I didn't want to see that happen.
I believe that right now this agency is in a crossroad, and I was raised on this job. I believe in the work that we do. I believe in the leadership that we have, and I want to be a part of that team. And I want to take this agency back to where we were as the boldest.
I started as a police officer in 1981, and I was a patrol officer, so I did all the duties of a regular police officer. I was one of a handful of women in the state of Maine back then to actually work full patrol. And I started into law enforcement to help my community. I wanted to make a change for the better. And after a couple of years on the road, I realized that I wasn't achieving what I wanted to see happen in my community. I kept repeating the same arrests, going to the same homes, and seeing some of these people come back to the community before I was even back from the jail. And I wanted to do something different.
So I started out in AMKC in the 90s when the Latin Kings ruled the world before we had Bloods and Crips in New York City. I started out during the crack epidemic when Brooklyn didn't look like Brooklyn. And at that time, the challenge that we're facing now looked very much the same as it was then. And as a young girl coming up, I thought this was just a job. And I saw the people behind the gate were from my community. And that was a little bit disheartening. It wasn't what I expected. But we were a family on both sides of the fence. And it just changed my whole outlook.
Well, back when I started as a police officer, as I said, I was one of a handful of women in the state as a full-fledged police officer, and it was not a welcoming time for women in law enforcement. It was very unusual to see a female in a uniform. I struggled. I went on many interviews before I finally landed a job with the Thompson Police Department. And the chief was very progressive at that time. And so my immediate colleagues who I worked with, and they were able to see that I was competent and I could do the same job that they did, they embraced me. But the community and other law enforcement officers who didn't see me on a regular basis were not so welcoming. And I would show up to calls and the citizens would look behind me to see where the men were and say, "I'm not talking to you, send me a male officer." And there were male officers in the community, in the surrounding communities, who wouldn't speak to me because they didn't believe I belonged there.
It's important that the incoming staff members see themselves on the stage. They need to see opportunity. They need to see that as mothers, as single mothers, as young black women, there's no difference than you and I. They need to see the story, that the opportunity exists. I feel I'm symbolic of that, and I like to let them see it, that it's real, that it's attainable. And I like to share that whenever I get an opportunity. So in this promotion class, being one of the largest, I believe that we're going to see those faces, and they're going to know that in sharing our story with this administration, for the first time, they're going to see that as women, we're really making big differences.
And you have to have character and drive and determination to set your own path and not to let anyone put up roadblocks to stop you in your goals. And if they do put up roadblocks, to find a way to go around them and achieve your goals anyway. You have to really work hard, and you have to be a thoughtful leader. You can't use emotion to make your point. You have to use logic and reason, but be yourself. Don't be someone that you aren't, so that you don't have to put on an act. Develop a record of successes so that people can look at your resume and your journey as a whole picture, not as just a female who wants to move up in an agency.
you can take this as a career, not a job, and feel proud of your uniform. There's not a day that I put on my uniform that I haven't felt proud of who I am. And the way that I know that I'm doing good is that my son is proud of me. You know, my mother has like an 11 by 14 picture up. You know, I want everyone to feel that way about this job. And I want a role that would allow me to do that in a broader sense and make those connections on a citywide level so that we could have a sisterhood amongst agencies, not just locally law enforcement. Becky Scott, New York City Department of Correction, December 6, 1991.
I'm Cynthia Brand, Commissioner, New York City Department of Correction.